BTS Jimin panics. Jungkook's mother witnesses the reenactment of Jungkook being bullied and beaten severely. What actually happened in this reenactment that made the atmosphere so emotional? How does Jimin, who has always been a protector of the other members, feel when faced with the painful reality of what Jungkook endured? The shocking reenactment started calmly, but as scene after scene unfolded, the room became filled with tension. Jungkook's mother, who had seemed strong from the beginning, finally couldn't hold back her emotions when seeing her son treated so terribly. Tears began to flow, filling the room with heartbreaking sobs that crushed the hearts of everyone present. How could anyone do such a thing to someone as good as Jungkook? So many questions echoed in that room, but no one could provide a satisfactory answer. Jeon, who had tried to comfort Jungkook's mother from the start, was deeply shaken by what they witnessed. As the oldest member of BTS, Jeon has always been a protector for the other members, especially Jungkook, who has always been considered their younger brother. He feels not only responsible for their physical safety, but also for their emotional well-being. However, in that reenactment, he witnessed a harsh and unimaginable reality of what Jungkook had endured, which turned out to be far worse than he had suspected. Meanwhile, Jungkook's mother, sitting trembling, couldn't contain her sadness seeing her son, who had worked so hard during his military service, treated so cruelly. Every insult, every punch shown in the reenactment felt like a direct slap to her heart. She wondered, how could anyone be so cruel to her son, who had always tried to be a good soldier, who had always sought to respect and do his duties wholeheartedly? Jungkook's mother's feelings deepened when she saw the military colleagues in the room, who were supposed to be witnesses to ensure justice, instead were silent and stunned by the ongoing events. Those who should have upheld honor and justice were visibly shaken by the brutality shown to Jungkook. No one could hide that bitter reality. Even Jeon, who had tried hard to keep his composure, finally couldn't hold back his tears. It felt like their world was falling apart. Jimin, sitting beside Jeon, felt a deep panic. He knew Jungkook better than anyone, understanding how gentle and caring his heart was, despite often appearing cheerful and energetic. Seeing his friend treated this way felt like an unavoidable nightmare. Jimin felt the strength within him to protect Jungkook, but at that moment, he realized there was nothing he could do except watch with deep sorrow. Indeed, this was such a heavy feeling. Even after the reenactment ended, its impact was still strongly felt. Jeon, who was supposed to end the day with a sense of relief after the procedure, only felt more burdened. However, there was one thing that gave him some peace: that justice would be served. Those involved in the bullying had been heavily punished. They were dishonorably discharged and sentenced to prison, as a step to show that their actions were a severe violation of military ethics and humanity. However, for Jungkook, this reenactment was not the end of his suffering. In a statement released by BTS's agency, Jungkook thanked Jeon and his mother for their unwavering support during this difficult time. "What happened to me was painful, but it is not the end of my story," Jungkook said firmly. He emphasized that together with his family, his friends, and the global army, they would keep moving forward. This event not only left a wound on Jungkook, but also sparked a national conversation about the importance of ending bullying and abuse of power in hierarchical organizations like the military. Many advocacy groups praised the courage of Jungkook's mother and Jeon for directly facing this trauma, calling for systemic change to prevent similar incidents from happening again. Jeon, who continued to fight alongside Jungkook's mother, felt even more compelled to continue this struggle. He joined advocacy groups focused on tackling bullying and harassment in hierarchical organizations. Using his platform, he began to speak out openly about the importance of creating safe and compassionate environments for everyone. Jeon's and Jungkook's mother's courage has inspired many people to stand against bullying and abuse, not only in the military but also in everyday life. This story has become a symbol of strength, resilience, and love that inspires many. The courage to speak up, to fight against injustice, and to support one another in times of difficulty is a very powerful message. Even amidst deep sadness, Jeon and Jungkook's mother found hope and strength to keep moving forward. This story is not just about a K-pop star, but about every individual who has ever experienced suffering and fought to find a way out. The events we've just read are truly heart-wrenching, full of emotions and tension, and deeply moving. However, one important question we must ask ourselves is, do we truly believe that this event is real, or is it merely a fabrication to grab the media's attention? Let's pause for a moment and consider all possibilities. A story like this is certainly compelling to read, a tale of a BTS member who experienced severe bullying in a military environment, faced with such harsh realities, and his colleagues and family struggling to obtain justice. But are we sure that every detail in this article reflects the truth? Or is it simply a story embellished to attract sympathy and public attention? As readers, we need to delve deeper into the source of this news. Is there evidence to support the claims of bullying Jungkook endured? Did the legal and military judicial process truly unfold as depicted in this article? The many stories we often read in the media, especially those involving celebrities, sometimes raise doubts about whether what we're reading is reality or merely a tale crafted to create sensation. News like this can be very confusing. When our emotions are tied to a sympathetic story, it's easy to be tempted to believe it without further questioning. Are we merely passive consumers of the information presented, or will we be critical and reflective individuals regarding every news item that comes our way? As readers, we must also question the role of the media in spreading such news. Has the media or news agency broadcasting the story been careful enough to ensure that what they are presenting is factual? Or are they simply trying to grab as much attention as possible with provocative headlines and sympathy-inducing stories? Are we, as readers, merely going with the flow, or do we have the courage to dig deeper? It is important to realize that in this increasingly connected world, there is a vast amount of information circulating out there. Not all of it can be trusted. Some stories may even be designed to manipulate readers' emotions and lead them toward a particular narrative. The article we are reading contains many strong emotional elements, from Jungkook's mother's suffering to Jimin's panic as he watches his friend treated badly. Did all these emotional elements really happen, or were they just tactics to make readers feel connected and empathetic to the story? We can easily get trapped in the emotional game being played, but how much do we really know about what is happening behind the scenes? Are we just relying on the story presented by the media without conducting deeper fact-checking? So many news stories we read have sensational elements that make us want to keep reading, but are we too quick to draw conclusions without understanding the bigger picture? There is also the possibility that what we're reading is a hoax, a story deliberately built to attract public attention. In this fast-paced world, we often rush to believe any information that comes our way, especially when it touches on our emotions. Are we, as a society, too easily swayed by stories designed to trigger our emotional responses, or do we really know what is happening behind the scenes? When we read news like this, we must be cautious and always ask ourselves, is this truly a fact, or is it just a story created for sensational purposes? Remember, not everything circulating on social media or in the public domain is the truth. Sometimes, a carefully crafted narrative can hide different facts, which we can only uncover if we truly dig deep and question the sources.